Hello and welcome back to the last talk of the day. I hope you've all enjoyed meeting the other delegates in the breaks to continue your conversations in the meeting hub, or maybe you wandered over to the Wellbeing Hub for some you time. And hopefully you also got the chance to stretch your legs, keep hydrated and breathe some fresh air too. I hope you also enjoyed the workshops. Now, apologies that Praki Rahija had difficulties connecting for the process landscape workshop. We're currently seeing if we can get a recording to upload to the conference portal, and we'll keep you updated with our progress. So hopefully you won't miss out. Now, before we go any further, don't forget that you do need to download the Kahoot app, the Kahoot.it application for the quiz in 20 minutes time. So if you haven't already done so, download that now via the app or via the web link. But I hope you're ready for a fast-paced session now as I introduce a TED-style talk with Steve Yorkstone and Dr. Eva Malone. Steve's a very familiar face in the Lean community, author of multiple books and chapters on Lean in HE, and also a well-known speaker on the subject. He's an internal consultant for Edinburgh Napier University, where he facilitates, coaches, trains, and convenes a community of practice. As well as all that, he chairs, amongst other things, the global continuous improvement community of Lean HE. And joining him today is Dr. Eva Malone, Associate Professor of Immunology at Napier University, with a fascinating research background in mountain biking, endurance, and older men. To confirm, that is strictly an academic interest, and I did get her permission to mention it. Okay, well, Eva has just been awarded a National Teaching Fellowship in recognition of her expertise, commitment to teaching, her influence on colleagues, and her contribution to student experience. Well done, Eva, for that. And she's here today with Steve for their talk, How We Used a RACI Tool Variant to Enhance Program Management and Enable Programmed Leadership. Eva, Steve, a very big welcome and take it away.
Yes. Quite often I'm doing the thing at the top and the end of the conference, and it's really special to come and share a little story about my little university, Edinburgh Napier. So we're a university in Edinburgh, in Scotland's capital, and we talk about ourselves as the home of the difference makers. We are the best student experience in the city of Edinburgh, which we repeat very often because we're not the largest or potentially the most prestigious university. But we are the #1 modern university in Scotland in the Scotland Sunday Times University Guide. In my university, I'm all about doing practical things to try and help make things better. So that's why we wanted to come today to talk about this tool that we've developed. But it's worth noting where this came from, which was through the Lean Higher Education Network, because it was when Vincent came to a community of practice event that I ran that I introduced Eva first to the concept of Lean. Eva.
Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here. Thanks Vanessa and thanks Steve. So it was after one of a talk that Steve had organised in the business improvement group at Edinburgh Napier that I learned a little bit more about lean processes and continuous improvement processes. And after one of these sessions, I spoke with Steve and one of his colleagues, Brent Hurley, who I believe is here today. And we explored ways that we could apply continuous improvement processes to marking and assessment. And we worked together on a really large project module where we had maybe 35 to 40 academics contributing to the assessment of that module. And we applied continuous improvement processes to the allocation of workload and marking workload on that module, taking into consideration the team's commitments overseas, on home undergraduate programs and taught programs as well, which was quite a big undertaking. And it was with Brent and my colleague, Dr. Claire Garden. And based on that experience, I was introduced to Lean in and got the opportunity to work with Steve. And from that relationship, this project developed. On the next slide here, you can tells you a little bit about my role. So I'm a program leader. It's one of the roles I have at Napier. I'm a program leader, and there are around 500 students studying on the program suite that I lead. We have 36 modules that make up the delivery, and that's across 5 programs, from biomedical science to marine and freshwater biology. And as a program leader, I'm supported by 4 year leads, and I have 1 program administrator that supports me too, but ultimately I am responsible for the delivery and the student satisfaction on those 5 programs. The suite is accredited by the Royal Society of Biology as well, and being a program leader is a particularly challenging role, and it's not always a popular role in universities. And Steve asked me to capture an image to find an image that captured about my role as a program leader after the first year of completing the role. And the man in the picture is supposed to represent me. And that's how I felt about the job 1 year in as program leader. I really felt overwhelmed, and that was before the pandemic and dealing with all the associated extra work that was that we've all had to do as a result of the pandemic. It's a hard role, and it's not always a popular role. And I did feel really alone, even though I was supported by a team, and we have a department of learning and teaching enhancement at Napier, and they support us, but I still felt really overwhelmed and exhausted at the end of my first year. And I knew things had to change. I couldn't continue. If I had started on the next academic year without looking for support and change, I would have been waist deep in mud. And given the context of the pandemic, it would have been neck deep. And so I approached Steve. I reached out to Steve to look for help because of my learnings and my experience of working with Steve and Brent's previous project. I felt Steve would be able to help, and there was lessons I could learn for him as I approached the next academic year.
So what we did was we started to meet online, and we kind of got together relatively regularly online and started brainstorming and putting down ideas. One of the things that we focused on, we were working in a digital working space, a whiteboard like this. And in those coaching sessions, we took an approach which was very much just make it visible, just tell the story as it is, don't overthink it. And we started to see a pattern that was emerging. We settled on a goal. We wanted to kind of improve how the program ran. And as we went through doing this, we started to see, well, look at all these roles. There's so many roles. Look at all these tasks. There's so many tasks. And I started to think in my lean toolbox, well, is there something that I can bring here that might help Eva? And of course, from the title, you know, kind of where this is going. But the process that we took was important, wasn't it, Eva?
It was. There was recognition within the team that things needed to change. So I mentioned that I was supported by 4 year leads. I also work very closely with my head of subject, and I gained support from the year leads and my head of subject to embark on this project. And there was a general sense of hope that working with Steve and would help us to be more efficient on the program, and ultimately to improve student satisfaction and communication on the program. So this picture is one that I took when I was out walking and early one morning, and it's a sunrise and reflects, I suppose, how I was feeling and how the team were feeling when we embarked on this project. One thing that I should say is that in order to start on the project, I did have conversations with my line manager and head of subject to I suppose, reassure them that this wasn't going to be an additional project and somewhat of a burden to the role I already had. I really firmly believed, in my judgment, this project would be a better program leader. And so thankfully I was able to convince them of that. And so I had their support to go ahead and work with Steve and embark on this project. During the process, at stages, we shared our developments and how we were working together, and what ultimately became our program roadmap with other members of the wider team. So beyond the year leads, to the members of the team that contribute to the delivery of modules, to supporting students. and it was favourably received, and we also received constructive feedback to make the tool a little easier to engage with, and the value amongst the team was seen, because some of my colleagues are also program leaders on other programs, and they could see the value for them.
So let's have a look at kind of what this looked like. So, and I'm aware there will be lean people thinking, well, this is the wrong use of a RACI matrix. You need to have the process done first and then map it across. And you won't be able to see the detail in the slide. And if you would like a copy of the Excel spreadsheet, let us know. We'll send it round to you. Message me through the conference platform. One of the things we did quite early on is we involved the program administrator, Adam. When they came on board, Adam Satter, what they brought was a knowledge of Excel and how to do it. And so they built this sheet, which also built in the knowledge that they used. You'll note we added participating as a RACI acronym. I know it's not a standard one, but it's one that the team wanted. So it reflected what their needs were to use this in their context. With Excel, we can do sort and filter, so we can see who does what when. We can look at clusters of tasks. Is it about boards, or is it about admissions, all that kind of stuff? And then Adam built a separate tab which automatically calculates academic weeks of the year, so we can see when it needs to be done and when it needs to be used. I think that's probably enough on the tool. I'm interested in how the experience went with you using it, Eva.
So another picture here from me when out on a walk. This is beside where I live, just in the outskirts of Edinburgh. It's at Queensferry. And in the beginning, I was a really big fan of the roadmap of the actual tool that we created. And I believe this was key. Steve had said to me that the process itself was important, maybe not more important. And as time has gone on, I've realized that myself. And I agree that going through the process was incredibly important. This picture I've included because our academic year is split into three. We call them, we've years. And so the bridge is supposed to represent the trimesters that I have to travel through as a program leader with the program leadership team and the wider team. And the bridge gives us the direction. It's a lovely calm picture as well. The water looks beautiful. If you remember back to the image that I used to represent how I felt at the end of my first year, this is how I feel at the end of how I felt at the end of my second full year being a program leader. I had direction. I knew where I was going. Also, I wasn't alone. In the first image, I really felt alone. I felt I was accountable for everything. I felt I was responsible for everything. I felt I had to do everything. And what the adapted RACI matrix provided was clarification that I was not alone, inclusion of all the members of the team that are there to support me, and an agreement of how we were going to work together, just clarity around the roles and who was involved. We did have responsible and accountable, but it wasn't clear to us when many people were responsible for completing a task who was actually responsible, and that's why we included the participating element to it, because it helped with our needs. We completed this and used the program roadmap during last academic year, so right in the height of COVID and responding to COVID. And I firmly believe, in my opinion, that the tool and going through the process with the team has helped us to survive, and even more than survive last academic year, to do incredibly well last year. And it's down to working with Steve. I couldn't have got here on my own, alone. And Steve helped me and coached me and the team and helped facilitate the process and create the roadmap for us. I think what it allowed me to do was to manage the management so I could engage in educational leadership. I was swamped by the management. Now I can refer to the program tool to help me set agenda items for meetings. It helps reassure me that I've not forgotten about anything, and also highlight what's coming, which takes a burden off me. I had a lot to remember. I don't have to remember that anymore because it's down in one place. And while I'm not ready to give up the role yet, I do believe that in time, this roadmap will have another value, and that will be for succession planning. So when I no longer do the role, that I will be able to help somebody else transition into the role, and so they will force to help them.
Eva is very kind. In this, we see a lot of the lean principles that we're familiar with. We take the implicit, we make it explicit, we make it seen in a way that people can interact with it sensibly in a group so that they can make wiser decisions. And acting as a coach is a glorious thing, and it's an awful lot of fun to work with somebody and see them go through that process. And as Eva said, this is a process which has gained interest. Earlier in the conference, we heard colleagues talk about how hard it is for academics. And there has been interest in this elsewhere. So we now have a handful of universities in Scotland who've got a copy and they're working with it. And you know, I hope they make something different from it and change it and make it their own. Because the point isn't that it's an Excel spreadsheet or a RACI tool. The point is that it's a structure that enables people to think about how they work and improve. There's a book chapter that's coming out too. I love myself a good book chapter. But really, Eva, Lean's about focusing on value, you know, eliminating that waste to grow the value. What's the value that you see in this?
Well, we've just last year came to the end of the academic year, and as many of the institutions across the UK, our students participated in the National Student Survey, and we did really well. So while numbers satisfaction dropped across the UK, and we held our own on the programme suite. And just to put that into context, we're a practical based program suite: biomedical science, biological sciences, animal and conservation biology, marine freshwater biology, applied microbiology. We should be in the lab. We were really, really affected by COVID and the restrictions that were placed on us. But because of the way that we were working as a team, and because of the tool, we were really able to respond to the best of our ability. And the students recognized that. And we placed 5th out of 74 institutions across the UK that provide biomedical science. And we also placed 8th out of 28 institutions across the UK for animal and conservation biology. So they're the programs we have data on based on the numbers and completion rate. So we did incredibly well. We had our biomedical science at 94% student satisfaction, and we also working on to improve satisfaction, and it increased by 20+%. I firmly believe, in my opinion, that this is all down of working with Steve and developing the roadmap. And also, I'm not waist deep in mud. I'm not neck deep in mud. I'm actually able to put the management of the program to one side. And now, because of that, in my 3rd academic year as a program leader, I have now started to prepare to lead the team on another project where we will be developing an inclusive and decolonized curriculum. And I've been able to do that because I've had the headspace, and the management is being managed, and we're working as a team. And now I am being an educational leader like I should be.
For me, that's the value of higher education. That's what we do as a network as part of Lean HE. We're a community that removes some of the overburden to allow people who work on the front line do great stuff. So my challenge to you as a Lean HE community is, can you take a simple tool, something that you can describe to someone in a couple of minutes, find somebody brilliant and make that difference? I love a transformational budget, but can you make a transformation just with what you've got? Our university doesn't have transformational budgets. We don't have the luxury of that. So we're going to do what we can with what we've got. And I love it. There's some people we should thank, Eva. There's Adam, the program administrator. Of course, they helped us make sure this happened. Dr. Rob Breyer is the head of the subject. And your team too, Eva, am I right?
Yes, the wider programme team. And I would also like to give a shout out to the Department of Learning and Teaching at Edinburgh Napier University as well, because I was supported as a programme leader. I just needed that extra support.
And for those of you who love a good book, there's a references list that'll pop up just now. You can find that on the reading link. And before I hand back the wonderful Ness, yes, direct message me on the Meeting Hub and I'll send you a copy of the spreadsheet. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And congratulations, Eva and Steve. That was a fascinating insight into improving program management and leadership in a really tangible real-world context, superbly explained and really applicable to other contexts as well. So thank you both formally to Dr. Eva Malone and Steve Yorkstone. Please show your appreciation in the normal way by posting your comments in the discussion. Thank you. And as Steve and Eva head off, I'm going to suggest a quick 2-minute comfort break before we kick off for the final part of today's conference. So you can go and get a drink, make sure you've downloaded the Kahoot app or got it ready by the app or the web link. So I'll see you back here in literally 2 minutes. Take care. Bye for now.